Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 of production gold panning. We're back in my gold cleanup room, also known as my garage. Right here we have all the concentrates from panning on the river in part 1. What I plan on doing is classifying it down to 1/8 inch, and then I'm going to run it through the gold cube and see what we get. I'll show you some of the details along the way. Before I start classifying, just real briefly, I have a few different ways that I run my cons after I come back from the river. And it depends whether I'm just out test panning, production gold panning, or running a dredge or a sluice. Normally, production gold panning and running a dredge, I have a lot of cons, so that's when the gold cube works really well. And if I'm doing a lot of test panning or running a sluice with like gold hog mats or something where I don't have a lot of cons, I will classify down and run my gutter sluice. It's quicker, it's faster to clean up, and really I have less final cons. And if I'm just test panning, come home with just a little bit of cons, you know, half full container. What I like to do is classify it in these, just down a few different mesh sizes, and then I remove the magnetic black sands and just pan the gold out. So it all depends on how much cons I have and what I feel like doing. But today, back to the gold cube process. So normally when I'm on a river with larger gold, I'll check this screen, and I normally don't on that section of the river, but I'll put it aside and check it later just in case. You never know. This is what we're going to run through the gold cube. I'll get the gold cube set up. I need to wet the trays. I need to fill up the tub with water. Woo! Alrighty then. So, it's important to wet the trays because if you don't, there'll be air bubbles trapped in between the riffles. And I have 2 layers with the low rib matting, including my slick plate, which is now matte, and 2 layers of vortex. Alright, it's hard to get every little spot wet, and so there's no air bubbles, and with the bubbles in there the gold kind of skips over the ripple. So as long as we get most of them out, we're doing better. Alright, so I have Vortex, low rib, low rib. I like the Vortex because it seems to have better gold retention. And I like the low rib because it strips more black sand, you can see the gold better, and I end up with less cons. Alright, so here's the top tray, all the cons that I panned out, and I only spent about 2.5 hours panning, so this gold is so fine that I doubt if I would have just been panning down to the gold and using the snuffer bottle to get it out on each pan, I really doubt I would have captured this much. After cleaning out the top tray, I have a little baby pile of gold started. Started off with a pretty full pan, Garrett Super Sluice pan, it's a big pan. Ran it through the gold cube. This is all the cons I have left after running through the gold cube. I'm going to take the Magnetite out and classify it down to a few different sizes. And I do that because some of this gold is so small that you really do have to sort it into different sizes to get it out. Otherwise, it's almost impossible. So I guess I'll show you how I do that. When I do this, I go through a few different stages to make sure everything's out of the Magnetite, because this is a neodymium magnet which picks up a lot, even the stuff that's not magnetic, because it gets trapped with all the magnetic stuff. So I go through until I don't have any non-magnetics left. And I try to hover over the water until it just starts picking up the magnetite. That way I'm not picking up huge clumps. That's how you can pick up your gold and other non-magnetic sand if you're not careful. I see a few pieces of gold in that pan. Normally after separating this a few times I have it pretty clean, and I'm confident there's not much gold in it, or any. And at some point I put all this magnetite together and I run it through the gold cube again. And I just start at step 1 again. Alright, now I'll throw that through a couple classifiers and get the gold out. For the classifiers I'm using 100, 50, and 30. So that's the minus 100. This is the stuff that takes you forever to get out with a snuffer bottle on the river. And yeah, it's not a lot of gold, but if you miss that amount every time you go out to the river, it adds up. This is the 100 mesh. And you can see how that gold floats. Look at that. Time to get some jet dry. Here's the 50 mesh. This is my last screen. It's 30 mesh, well, between 30 mesh and 1/8. I don't really expect to see much in this, but looks like three flakes and a couple little pieces of lead. That's my 30 mesh. It's about what I expected from that spot, but here's what we pulled out of there. And this was just the 2.5 hours of panning. So it's not a lot, but it's more than what I would have had if I had done panning the slow way the whole time I was there. Here's a close-up. Okay, here we are. I dried up the gold. I have this right here is from the production panning video part 1 and part 2. And this is from the last 2 or 3 trips to the same river doing test panning and a little bit of production gold panning that I do. So I don't really expect the gold from this last trip to really register much. It was just surface gold, flood gold. And this river doesn't really, I mean, it's not known for large quantities of gold. Here's the first part. And I'm measuring in grams, so barely 0.2. Now with the gold from the last couple trips. Here. So 0.7 of a gram. And it does add up. This is my fine gold from that river. So I really do appreciate you watching this video. If you like what I'm doing here, make sure you like and subscribe. I'd love to get some more of these videos out. The more subscribers I have, the more motivation I'm going to have to go do it. So until next time, we will see you later.